Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We call this our professional development webinar for our nurses across all scopes of practice. So whether you're just starting in your practice or going into advanced practice, this is really a webinar series that hopefully speaks to you. And I am so appreciative that we have our awesome panel here today. And we're going to talk to you about building your nursing network. So we call it from grad to great, but really you can also be building your network if you're really establishing some new goals. So my name is Hiva Kolodrowicz. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a family nurse practitioner. I've been a nurse since 2012. And I've been a nurse practitioner since 2015. And I really love to talk to you guys about these different professional development series because it's something that I've learned along the way and I like to pass that information along. So just hitting up some topics of what we're going to discuss today. We're going to talk about the power of networking. I think networking is a buzz term, but nobody really talks about the strategies and how to really build that network. So we're going to get into that today, and we're going to hear from those experts on our panel. And before going any further, I'm going to let those experts say hi and introduce themselves. We have our lovely Morgan Taylor, Chief Nursing Officer here at Archer. Morgan has an extensive background in pediatric critical care, and she moved on to teaching and mentorship and leading really that next generation of nurses. So Morgan, go ahead and say hi to our audience today.
Hello. Hi, thanks for joining, guys. I really love this webinar series. This is a fun way to transition all of you guys who are graduating and new nurses and tell you everything that you can do, professional development, and getting you ready to advance your practice, whether you're going to go back to grad school or not. We always want to be pushing towards that next step and empowering you to have the tools to do so. As Hiva said, my background is in peds. I really like kids a lot more than grown-ups personally. So I worked in the PICU, the Peds ED, a cardiac ICU that I loved. Heart defects are one of the areas I love teaching about. And really, as I started teaching, felt like there was an opportunity to make a bigger impact at scale here, starting Archer Review, really looking at teaching the next generation of nurses with joy and compassion so that you guys were fueled to have what you needed as you got started. So that's what I aim to do today and every day. Thanks for being here along the way. And I can't wait to dive into all of this with you guys.
Morgan, I'm so excited to have you on today's panel because you really are someone who's a huge resource to really talking about networking and growing your network. So this is great. And I already see some feedback from students saying they love your videos and they're so happy to see you here today. So thank you for joining us. This is going to be
Of
fun.
course.
Our next panelist, which you guys already also may know as well, is our very own Rachel Taylor, and she's the Director of Nursing here at Archer, and no relation to Morgan Taylor. I've asked the question myself. Rachel, and I asked her like a year later. I was like, wait, it's the same last name. So it took me a year. You guys probably got there before I did, but no relation. And Rachel is our awesome director of nursing. She has a lot of nursing experience from the ICU world, and that really led her into education. So, Rachel, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background and what you're working on now.
Yeah, absolutely. So as the director of nursing, I really focus on nursing school and NCLEX and really helping bridge that gap as you first start in practice. And one of my biggest goals is to support you all. It can be stressful to be in nursing school, to be a nurse, to be preparing for your NCLEX. And I want you guys to feel like you're not alone through that you have support in us and that you can come to us when you have questions or need extra assistance. And so that's really my big goal now. As she said, I started in the ICU. I absolutely loved ICU nursing, but it did lead me into academia pretty early in my nursing career. And I found that that is really my true passion is being in education. So thanks for having me today.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm really excited. I know you give these talks a lot. You guys were both just recently at the conference last week for the National Student Nurses Association and both giving talks on networking as well as test taking anxiety and all of that. So really, really great to have you guys on today. I appreciate it. And a little bit about my background. So, like I said, I've been a nurse since 2012. I am an advanced practicing registered nurse. So, I'm an APRN, family nurse practitioner. My background has been mostly in community health in that outpatient setting. So, I started my career in that pediatric outpatient setting, transitioned to internal medicine as an NP, and specialized in cardiology and endocrinology. And my area of interest, I really have enjoyed over the years all the experiences I've gotten. And I've changed jobs many times because of our family situation, moving states. So I've had to do it over and over and over again and really talk about learning a new landscape every time when you move states, right? You have to learn that medical culture, learn that nursing culture, and have to really build your network over and over again. And that can be exhausting. But over that time, I've picked up a lot of different pearls that I want to share with you guys today. And my biggest interest is really supporting the nurse wherever you are in your nursing journey, whether you want to go into that advanced practice, whether you want to do it in a different way. I really want to make sure I'm supporting you guys in giving back and showing you how to really expand that network, how to really get to know your local area, and how to get to your goals. What are your career goals? And that may shift from time to time. It may also shift from different life stages, right? That's really important. So, how do we get there? How do we set those goals? How do we get there? And then, how do we support each other through that process as well? And making sure that you're also promoting things like safe practice, safe clinical practice as you're making those transitions. That's really important and my biggest passion. Another passion that I've really recently gotten into personally as a provider is really promoting self care. That's something I struggle with. And our next month's professional development webinar is going to be on mindfulness because that's something that I've discovered personally and something I want to share again with this bigger community. But we'll hear more about that next month. This month, we'll focus on the networking. So before we jump in, we're going to do some fun Slido tools. For those of you who've used Slido before, you are pretty familiar with it. You know you can go ahead and scan this QR code or go to slido.com and put in the hashtag Let's Network. For those of you who haven't used it before, I've put in some fun polls just to get us started, just to see who's in the audience today. So don't feel shy, don't feel intimidated. You'll go ahead and see the screen, but you're not going to see who is responding. So I want to make sure you guys can see my screen. Yes, you can. And so what I really like about Slido is when you're entering your responses, you can see how many people are typing, you can see how many people have responded, but your name doesn't pop up unless you want your name to pop up. So you can really remain anonymous during today's webinar, but really participate and get to see who else is out there, who your peers are, and really learn from their experience as well. So go ahead and play around with the different types of polls I've started us off with. This one is an open text, so you can really type anything in there. I just want to know who's in the audience today. So tell me where you are in your nursing journey. Are you a new RN? Are you an RN student? Are you a nurse practitioner student? Are you getting ready to go into NP school? Are you graduating? Are you thinking about getting your master's in science in nursing, but you're just not sure which one to pursue, right? We'll talk about that as well. There are a lot of different options. But tell me a little bit about who you are, where you are in your nursing journey, and what state you're in. I love to see that. Look at that. Just passed my NCLEX in Texas. Woo! I wish you guys had a nursing school. Well, we do have a nursing school companion, and I'll let Rachel talk about that. But absolutely. New RN, NCLEX preparing, a lot of nurses, nursing students preparing for the NCLEX. Love to see it. Currently preparing for the NCLEX. Almost graduating in PA. Very nice. Preparing for the NCLEX. I got one shout out from Texas. Where else are you guys from? And I do a little word cloud, I think, next to if you want to hold off. But from Ghana, that's so great. We do get a lot of students, not just domestically, but also internationally. So that's really exciting. Welcome, Doris. Thank you for that. From Calgary, Canada. Awesome. 2 internationals, Chicago. Preparing for NCLEX with Archer. So great. Nepal, Toronto. Wow, look at this, you guys. Texas. Wow, we're getting a couple of Texas shout outs. I love that. So I'm originally from the Boston area. That's where I did all my training. We moved around a couple of times, like I mentioned, for my husband's work. I've practiced out in California, and now we're here in Texas. So shout out to the Texans on the webinar today. Virginia, Canada. A lot of Canadians today. Very cool. I'm hoping to register for nurses beyond borders. Oh, that is wonderful. I think Morgan can speak to that as well. I've done some international work as a nurse as well, and that's really fulfilling. It's really nice to see. Maryland, San Francisco, New York, more Canada. Wow, that's exciting. Awesome job, you guys. Well, I'm going to skip this poll next of where you're from. You guys told me where you're from. I love it. So we'll go on to how long have you been a nurse? Have you been a nurse less than a year? A lot of new RN students are new to be in nursing. A lot of RN students preparing for the NCLEX on the call today. On the call, on the webinar, whatever the lingo is. Yeah. Look at that. And some seasoned nurses here, 2 to 5 years. Anyone over 5 years in nursing? Don't be shy. It's okay. Couple 2 to 5 years. Wow. Couple over 5 years in nursing. That's awesome. And for those of you joining us through our other channels too, Slido is not tied to Zoom, so you really can participate with Slido. Remember, this is that QR code, and here you can go to slido.com if you can't scan that QR code and put in Let's Network. But look at this. Wow. We've got some experienced nurses, some novice nurses, some nurses with 2 to 5 years experience, 1 to 2 years. Wow, this is great. So glad to see that, because again, networking really can speak to all phases of your nursing journey. You don't have to wait till you're seasoned to start networking to reach those goals. You can start early, but you also can change those goals at any time. I love to see that. That's great. All right. And then I wanted to know, how many of you are actively looking for a job right now? It's a yes or no, just out of curiosity. How many of you are looking to network to switch roles? So you're actively looking. A couple people thinking about it, maybe. I know there have been a lot more yeses, I think, during the pandemic. Now maybe people are feeling a little bit more settled into their new roles if you switched roles after the pandemic, but I'm seeing still a lot of yeses. Look at that. Yeah. And so typically people start thinking about networking when they're thinking about switching roles, right? But we're going to talk today about why networking is important, even when you're happy in your current role, and why that's good for you to be doing, even when you're not actively looking for a job. But very cool. And then the last poll, if you guys know me, you know I love my emojis, and this is a scale of 1 to 10, but with emojis. And so how are you feeling about the current job market? How confident do you feel getting out into the workforce for those new grads who are preparing for the NCLEX? How confident do you feel for those who are more experienced and looking to switch roles? I love to see that. Look at all these smiley faces. That's awesome, you guys. This is great. Well, then my webinar is done. All right, bye.
You guys are good.
But I was hoping to really boost confidence today with the numbers. I had some stats for you guys, but I love to see that you guys are feeling overall really confident. If you're not, that's okay too. We're going to get you feeling confident by the end of this webinar. We're going to talk about some stats about the outlook for jobs in nursing, and really making sure that you are being selective. You are leading the way with what that role looks like when you get into the role, and feeling confident doing all of that. That is awesome, you guys. Okay, that's enough of my fun Slido polls. Let's get into some content. Let's talk about the power of networking. And like I said, it's not something that you should really be waiting on when you're looking for a job. Networking is something that you should be doing throughout your nursing career. It's how you get to know about different roles, what jobs are out there, right? It's how you start to really pave that way of setting those goals too. If you don't know a job exists, you can't really make it a goal and get there, right? So networking is not just for those business professionals. It's really for nurses, and figuring out what all the different possibilities in this beautiful field are, right? That's really important. So talking to people, what do they do? How do they get into that? What have they done in the past, right? It's really fun. And I'm an extrovert, so for me, it's really easy. I think I took a quiz, and it said you're the kind of person who starts a conversation with the person next to you while waiting in the grocery store, and that's absolutely true. I just love getting to know people. So I think for some of us, it's going to be a little bit easier than for others, right? But we have a couple slides in, we have some tips about how can you network when you're not naturally an extrovert, right? For those introverts. But let's talk some stats. So 30 to 50% of all hires come from referrals. Let's think about that for a minute. That's kind of crazy, right? That is a huge percentage. So if you don't really talk to people about what they're doing, you don't really get to a sense of what the different departments are out there, who has an opening, what that role looks like. But really, as someone who does hiring, I do really highly pay attention to those personal referrals because I trust my colleagues. I know that if they've vetted someone, if they know someone, I'm going to pay attention to that applicant, right? And I'm going to make sure that I talk to that applicant and I'm going to see if they're a good fit for that role. And then I'm going to talk to my colleague and say, hey, what are your impressions? So, really, referrals are a really nice way to get your foot in the door, especially when it's a job that's highly desired and a lot of applications come in. So that is big, right? 30 to 50%. And when candidates are referred, they're 4 times more likely to be hired just because of the reasons I said, right? Because what do you guys think, Morgan, Taylor, when you guys get a referral from a colleague on your desk, what are some things that run through your mind?
Yeah, well, I always, number one, if somebody has taken the time to tell me, hey, this is a really good candidate, I want to vouch for them, I am always going to at least interview that candidate. That's kind of a common courtesy among hiring managers, is that usually if you're a referral, out of courtesy, they are at least going to get you an interview. So it's a faster way to get your foot in the door. And it also, as somebody who does hiring, gives me a little assurance to, if I have an awesome working relationship with A and A refers B, then that should speak to the quality of that candidate. So I'm not surprised by these stats at all, but it is crazy to kind of see the numbers behind it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And 45% of referred employees stay with the company for more than 4 years. I
That's
think that speaks to
crazy.
what you just said, Morgan. So if you know your colleague, you trust your colleague's instincts and intuition, and that colleague is recommending someone, chances are they're going to work out long term, right? That's going to really be a great fit for that department, that group, that company for a long time. And that's really great because it takes a long time to find people. And then as the person looking for a new job, it takes you a long time to learn a new role. So it's exhausting having to try to find new roles over and over again. So really looking for those long-term fits is beneficial for both sides, right? And then 88% of employers rate employee referrals as the best source of applicants. Rachel and Morgan, do you guys agree with that? That's definitely the best source. Yeah, absolutely. So referred candidates are also more likely to accept the job. So again, from your end, if you've been referred for a job, it's likely because you have a connection with that person. So you can really say, hey, what is this group like, right? What is this department like? Is this a healthy department, right? How do they treat their nurses? How do they treat their employees? You can really ask those questions and get to know if this is going to be a good fit for you as an individual. So you're more likely to accept that job. You're more likely to get excited about that role and really hit the ground running in that role. Let's talk about the benefits of mentorship. So, a few things that I highlighted, and again, all these stats come from National Bureau of Economic Research. LinkedIn also posts their global recruiting trend report. So, it's not just things that we've observed here from our end as hiring managers at Archer, but it's also something that's really trending and nationally shown in statistical reports. So let's talk about those benefits of mentorship. I really wanted to talk about mentorship. How do you get those referrals, right? How do you start to build those connections in the first place? And one way is really through mentorship and finding a good mentor. It can really help with that career growth. It can also help with that emotional support if you're just not sure where to go, you need some guidance, or if you're in a situation where you're like, this is not working, how do I get from A to B? And it can really help with that job success when you're starting a new role too. What do you guys think, Rachel and Morgan? What feedback or the clinical pearls or tips do you guys have for our audience about mentorship?
Yeah, at NSNA, this is actually what my talk was about when I was there. It was a full hour of mentorship. And really, the biggest thing is mentorship is shown to keep you in your job longer when you have a mentor, because you are going to be set up to respond with resiliency. And resiliency is huge when you're in the nursing profession. The other thing is, a lot of students ask me, I don't know how to get started with finding a mentor. And it's simple. You just have to ask. most of the time, if you explain to your mentor why you're looking for mentorship and your goals of mentorship, they're going to say yes. And some people might say no, but then that's not the right mentor for you. And you need to keep searching. And so it does take a little work on your end. But I will say, for my own career, finding the right mentor is huge when it comes to your success and where you end up landing in your careers.
Absolutely. So well said.
Yeah. I tell everybody, like, no one was ever meant to do this alone. Nursing is a team sport, and if you don't build your team, you're way more likely to get burned out no matter where you end up. So build your village. I talk about mentors as like a personal board of directors. So you should have people from different areas of your life that can check in with you, keep you accountable, and leveraging those mentors is a whole nother thing to go into. It's like, it's one thing to find them, but if you're not leveraging them, it's not going to really do you any good. You have to take the initiative to check in with them at least quarterly, more frequently when you're new. Check in, share your goals with them so they know what you're working toward and they can give you appropriate feedback. Just, yeah, really hold your feet to the fire.
I love that. So I heard you guys say ask, right? First and foremost, ask. Don't be afraid to ask, because if you don't ask, you won't get the yes, right? And if somebody says no, then they're not the right mentor for you. And then the other thing I heard you guys say is have multiple mentors, right? In different areas of where you want to focus. So not just one mentor, but multiple mentors. I love that, Morgan. I've never heard of that, but that's so true. You can't expect everything from one person, right? So one person may be great in one area, another person may be great in another area. So having multiple mentors. And then lastly, checking in with them. I love that. So checking in quarterly, because if you're not leveraging those mentors, then you don't really have that relationship, right? I love that. That's so great. So we're going to go into our next poll, and I want to see how many of you have had a connection that's opened a door for you. So have you had a situation where you've talked to someone, maybe you had a mentor where you didn't really quantify it as a mentor in your brain, but that's who they ended up being for you, and they really opened a door for you? What do you guys, I want to hear out there, and you can say not sure, I put that as an option too, but how many of you have had someone open a door for you in the past? I see one yes. One no, one yes. And so I'm trying to think about the time when it's just probably later in my career. And like I said, I'm pretty chatty. I like to talk to everyone. I like to get to know everyone. What are people doing? And I had really gotten to a point in my career where I felt like a seasoned nurse. And I felt like, you know what else do I want to do with my nursing knowledge to feel more fulfilled? And I started talking to my friends, colleagues, connections about really content creation. And that's what really started to open some doors for me in that realm so that I could use my clinical experiences to really benefit nurses and nursing students really getting more into the profession. So that's one thing that really helped me open a door, and it was through conversation. And so absolutely, I think that's a connection for me personally that's helped open doors. I see some of you also a lot of yeses. So building those connections is so great. I also want to leave this poll open. So this is an open text poll again. I know we have our friends joining from all different platforms. We have Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. This is a nice way, since we're all on Slido today, to really put in your questions for our panelists. And I'll periodically be checking it as we're going through these slides so that we can really ask and address our panelists any questions that you have based on what we're talking about. But some really great things. And remember, these lectures or these webinars are always recorded and posted on our YouTube channel, so you guys can go back and hear that great advice again. All right, so going to those strategies for networking. So first and foremost, using LinkedIn the right way, right? And so Morgan, Rachel, what do you think is the right way to use LinkedIn? Do you guys have profile tips, cold messaging etiquette? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think the right way to use LinkedIn is to just be active. As long as you are yourself and you bring your genuine, authentic goals and aspirations to the platform, that's the right way to use it. The only wrong thing to do is to not be leveraging it. And I will fully admit that I did not want to be on LinkedIn. I was like, we'll do that in nursing school. I'm like, I'm a nurse. What are you talking about? I need to be on LinkedIn. Well, turned out I was going to run a business. And to do that, I really had to bootstrap this LinkedIn and get on there. I wish I had done it sooner. Because what it turns out is that nurses are everywhere. Nurses are innovators. They're inventing products. They're running companies. They're influencing policy. And if I had been more forward thinking in even just observing what was going on that platform, I think I would have gotten involved a lot sooner. So pop up a profile picture, start connecting with people. You can connect with me, you can connect with Rachel and Hiva. We would be happy to be some of your first connections and just dive in.
Absolutely. That is great. So pop in that profile picture and start diving in. I love that. What do you think, Rachel?
So I was going to say, get a LinkedIn. About a year ago, I didn't even have one. And one of my colleagues is like, Rachel, why don't you have LinkedIn? And I said, I'm not looking for a job. I love my job. I don't need to be on LinkedIn. Oh my goodness, guys. LinkedIn is about so much more than looking for a job. It has led me to connections I didn't think I would have. It helps me become a better educator because I'm connected with people who are like-minded and wanting to support the next generation of nurses. So if you don't have a LinkedIn yet, my first bit of advice is to go make a LinkedIn. Try to do that today because I was really late to the game on even creating one because I thought it was silly a year ago. And I would say I was very wrong back then.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is really a great tool. I always tease my husband because his LinkedIn is so old and not even updated. I'm like, this is not what LinkedIn is for. So make sure you're updating it, make sure you're active on it. Same things, echoing what Rachel and Morgan said. In terms of profile tips, really just being yourself. I love that, Morgan. Be yourself, be your genuine self. And then there are nurses doing things in all different areas. So I love that you shout out policy, Morgan. There are nurses doing great things across the board in a lot of different avenues. So get out there, start connecting with them, message them. Cold messaging etiquette, as long as it's professional and you're genuinely interested in what they're working on, I think that's great. I wouldn't hound someone if they're not responding to you, right? Because again, we want to be professional. We want to be mindful of that person may not see it, or even if they are active, they might not feel comfortable responding if they don't know you. But really trying to put yourself out there. Worst thing is that you don't hear a response or you hear a no, right? But really connecting with us. And absolutely at the end of this presentation, I really want you guys actionable items. Go and make sure you connect with myself, Morgan, and Rachel. This will be your first 3 friends on LinkedIn, first 3 connections, but absolutely something low hanging fruit that we can do to start our networking. Secondly, joining nursing associations, both locally and nationally. I think this is really, really important. I love to join my nursing associations locally because it really helps me figure out what's happening locally. What am I feeling in the local culture? What am I seeing in the clinic? It also helps you really gain a sense of what are the different departments, different hospitals doing, different clinics doing. And you start to get a good sense of who's doing it well and who's not doing it well, right? And then nationally, you also want to really join those national organizations to see what's happening within our nursing community nationally. And Morgan, Rachel, do you guys want to talk a little bit about that? Because you guys were just at the National Student Nurses Association.
Yeah, I love a good conference, guys. Oh my gosh. And Hiva hit on my favorite subject regarding conferences, which is don't discount your local opportunities. They are a smaller group of people that you can create a lot more intimate relationships with more quickly. So starting out, I'm a part of the American Organization for Nursing Leaders, and I joined my North Carolina chapter and got to meet all sorts of deans and CNOs at the hospitals in my state. And then those relationships fueled me towards the right connections when I was at the national conference. The national conference had 5,000 people there. It's really hard to like make super genuine connections when there are 5,000 people. They're great conferences. There's amazing speakers. It's very motivating, but I love to start at that local level.
Absolutely. Yes, I think that's great. Yeah, and then attending those conferences. So exactly what you said, Morgan, really not just joining the associations, but also just attending the local meetings. Usually the local chapters have dinners about quarterly, and really attending those meetings, talking to people and following up, right? So if you meet someone, go ahead and make that connection by LinkedIn and then follow up and say, "Hey, it was great to meet you. Let's stay in touch." And what I really like to do is keep track of the people I've met and where I've met them in a little spreadsheet, because you do start to really meet a lot of people. Once you start to put yourself out there, you realize, oh, this is kind of easy because it's just really conversation, right? So making sure that you keep track of who you're meeting and really following up with them. Morgan, do you want to add something to that?
I
No.
was just gonna say, with it, you do have to go outside your comfort zone. I know for myself that sometimes I get a little nervous. Should I say something? Should I not? You do have to take that action step of this is going to be outside of my comfort zone. But what I always say is that we don't grow in our comfort zone. We have to step outside of it in order to grow as nurses in whatever path you want to take. So if it feels a little uncomfortable, it's probably good. It means it's growing you.
No, I love that. And I think you recently posted something along those lines in your LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, Rachel, you're so right. It's going to help us grow. So that's great. And really sharing those resources. I love this strategy because you don't want to be that person who has the reputation of like you're just grabbing all those connections and not sharing anything back, right? You want to make sure you're giving as much as you're taking, maybe giving even more, because if something's not the
Yes.
right fit for you, maybe you know somebody who it might be a good fit for, right? And reaching out to them and saying, hey, I heard about this opportunity. Let me know if you want that contact, and really helping form those trusting relationships as you're getting to meet people is a really nice way also to share resources. And you never know, people might be thinking of you too if you're really sharing those resources. So it's really a nice way to be kind, which is the big theme of our new generation growing up.
I
I have
call
two
that
small kids, and that's their big thing, kindness, right?
I call that being a value creator. The more value you create for your network, the more value that will come your way. Because we're really all very much intertwined, especially if you're connecting with people who have similar goals. So my like personal mission statement is empowering the next generation of nurses. So everyone I'm connecting with, whether you're at a hospital, a staffing agency, a school, a company, are about empowering that next generation of nurses. And I may not work with somebody for years, but if I'm going to have that mutual relationship of trust and bringing them value, I'm going to be top of mind when an opportunity does arise.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Absolutely. And woo, we have a lot of questions coming in. We
Hey,
can't hear the panelists. Oh no, I think the audio, so I can hear you guys. I think maybe the audio is a little bit low. I also tried to increase my volume. We'll try to work on that and speak up a little
That
bit.
Hiva, that's on Instagram. So Instagram won't be able to pick up Morgan and I. So if you guys just want to head over to our Facebook, that's going to be the best. Hiva, you say that to them,
I
not
will
me.
say that. Yeah, no,
Say
that's
that
good
to
to hear.
them.
Thank you. So, Rachel just clarified for me, it's probably for those Instagram users can't hear the panelists. So if you head over to the Facebook group, you should be able to hear the panelists. Remember, if you missed the earlier things that the panelists were saying, all this is recorded and will get uploaded onto our YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch it again. But it sounds like for those of you on Instagram can only hear me. Is that right, Rachel? They can only hear me and not the panelists. Oh, what a bummer. Technology. Come on, social media. And then I see any advice for a competitive new grad residency. Ooh, I love that. What do you guys think? I wish Lexi was on this. She's all about residencies. I know we talked about that at our last professional development um, webinar as well. But what do we think about residencies?
yeah, I love a new grad residency program and really think they should be everywhere. I know that is just not reality. We don't necessarily have them at every institution. If you are applying to a new grad residency, I'm thinking that this question was about how to be competitive to get into that residency. I think it's all the things we've been talking about as far as network, get your LinkedIn up and communicate your value and what you're trying to reach. Make sure that everywhere you're submitting any sort of application material to, whether it's an essay or a resume or an interview, you are consistent with what are my goals and how am I trying to get there. That consistency breeds authenticity. They're going to really see that and feel that, and you'll be an ideal candidate. I really encourage everyone to apply to a residency. If you don't have that opportunity, please reach out to us and at least get some mentoring support from our team so that we can help you in that transition period. It is a really hard time and we want to have your back.
I love that, Morgan, because I remember as a new grad being in the Boston area, it's so oversaturated. Of course, everybody wanted a residency program, so it was really competitive. So I totally get that. How do you get into that residency program that everybody wants? And I think exactly what you said, starting with connections and networking and having us help you and mentor you into getting into those residency programs, it's such a great way. I mean, just thinking about Morgan and Rachel's network. So if you reach out to them in LinkedIn, they know so many people in so many different hospital systems. I have no doubt that we'd be able to mentor you into a competitive residency program. And it really is worth it. It's a valuable experience. And the last question was, when a new grad takes up a new job and wants to undergo some period of getting acquainted to the job, will the pay package change within the first weeks of the job? So every hospital is different. Certainly residency programs are going to be lower pay. We won't get too in depth about contract negotiation and all of that in today's webinar, but you should be anticipating some time of really getting into that role, into that new role, right? And some clinics, some hospitals will have a pay structure that correlates with that. They'll say, you know, because this is a training period, this is your pay during this training period. And then once you're beyond your training period, we've evaluated your skills, then you'll move on to a different pay grade. So it's really a case by case scenario there. But what I want to emphasize is making sure you do take the time to train into those roles is really, really important. It's going to help you succeed in that role. And then we had a personal question about an Archer product. I will put up our email at the end, so go ahead and contact us directly for that user. Moving on to sharing some stories from the field, Morgan and Rachel, if you guys had any stories you wanted to share about if you know someone that found that dream job through networking, or a nurse who moved into leadership thanks to a mentor, maybe some personal stories about that. I didn't know if you guys wanted to share anything.
Yeah, I can start here. This is literally how I got into education. I thought I was going to be 60 or older when I became an educator. And a mentor I had back from when I was in nursing school that I knew asked me to be an academic success coach for a nursing school. And I love educating. I've tutored since I was like a middle schooler, probably, maybe even before then. And so she just knew that I really liked it. And I stayed in touch with her for years after I met her when I was a student. And she was like, hey, I have a job opportunity for you. I was like, okay, let me test it out. And then from there, that landed me with Archer, which truly is my dream job. And so I seriously thought I would be doing this in 20, 30 years, not now. But it was me saying yes and trusting what was offered to me and trusting those doors that were open to me and taking, full advantage of those and giving my best in those. But I do think that networking is really, really important, especially being authentic through your networking. People can tell when you're authentic and when you're not. So be authentic, show up for the right reasons. And I do think it could impact your career in so many ways.
Rachel, I'm so glad that you didn't wait till you're like an old nurse to get into teaching and mentoring, because you've mentored thousands of nursing students, and I think their careers are so thriving because of you. So I'm so glad that connection happened. Yeah. So I can share one too, or Morgan, I'll let you share as well.
Okay, yeah, mine's quick. I found my first job semi through networking. So I was in like my junior year of nursing school. I did like an internship type of program at Duke University Hospital in North Carolina, where I got to kind of float around. I was in the float pool to different areas and more or less like shadow and act as a nursing assistant with all different types of nurses for, I think it was like 3 months long. It was like a summer situation. Um, I knew I really loved peds, knew I had a heart for kids, but I didn't know which area in pediatrics I wanted to get into. So I made it a point to get in contact with it was called the Children's Resource Unit. It was like the float pool within the float pool that just did kids. And was like, I really want to get into kids. Like, can you set me up with some of these preceptors so that I can learn about these areas? And by staying staying in touch with that manager after the program ended, she ended up emailing me and saying, hey, we don't usually hire new grads, but we're opening a position for one person in the children's resource unit. Here's the link if you want to apply. And that was only because I reached out to her and I stayed in touch with her. And that landed me in a position where I got to work in every pediatric department in a huge academic institution that I never would have gotten that much experience otherwise.
Wow, that's amazing, Morgan. That's such a great experience and such a great way for you to reach out and network for that connection. That's awesome. That's wonderful. My experience was really going to be moving from state to state, and what I learned by the time I got to Texas is really reaching out to those academic institutions if you're lucky to have one in your metroplex, and really making that connection with the hiring managers, right? And even if you want to just step in and say, you know what, and send them an email through LinkedIn or a cold message and say, I just want to set up a meeting to let you know about my background, my interests, and get to know what's happening in your institution. They have a wealth of information, like you just said, from those departments that things aren't even posted yet. Or if they don't typically take a new grad for a certain situation, they know it's coming. They can really make those recommendations based on getting to know you, who you genuinely are, where your interests are, and really plugging you into those roles. I love that. So I had a poll going up if anybody wants to share their story. Do you know someone that found their dream job through networking? Don't be shy. Feel free to share that story. And then lastly, I was going to ask how many introverts are in the audience today. So again, it is an emoji scale, and I felt a little bit bad because those introverts got the sad face and then the extroverts got the happy face. So I was a little hesitant to use the emojis. But at the same time, I was like, well, it just means you get excited by talking to new people, and then you don't, it makes you feel really sad to talk to new people. So tell me, how many of you identify as extroverts? How many identify as introverts? You can also be in between. I love that. Like I said, I definitely do identify as being an extrovert. What about you guys, Morgan, Rachel? Are you guys extroverts, introverts, somewhere in
I
between?
I think of it as like where I get my energy from because I don't dislike either. But I definitely get my energy when I'm by myself. When I am like 10 toes up, eating some ice cream, watching my show, that's where I'm like, get to recharge. So I know that's really what fuels me. And I have to build time into my schedule for like Morgan's alone time. I cannot be talking to people 50 hours a day. And sometimes I feel like I am. My husband is the opposite. 100%. He gets all his energy from other people. If he could just be with other people all day, every day, he would. So I put myself, towards the left side of this.
I love that you make time. Talk about self-care. You make Morgan
Yeah,
time. So you know
Morgan
what
does.
gives you energy. You need time by yourself. Maybe you don't want to put a label on being an introvert, extrovert, whatever, but you know that you need that
Yep.
alone time to really recharge, and you carve that out. That is awesome. Talk about self-care. That's really, really valuable. Great modeling there, Morgan. I love it. What about you, Rachel?
I would say I'm kind of in the middle. If I am in my space, I can talk all day. Nursing education, I've got it, I'm good. If I'm outside of my comfort zone, then I'm more leaning toward the left there. It really just depends. I'm not talking to any strangers at the grocery store. Hiva, I'm glad you can do that. I don't have that skill. I don't think I'll ever have that skill, or really large groups of people I don't know. I'm more to the left. So I would say it's very situation dependent for me. But like one-on-one chatting with someone, love it. Love it so much.
I love it. I think I have a problem because I really try not to talk to people, especially with flying. I'm like, okay, don't talk to anyone so you can have a nice, quiet flight. And somehow it always, like, I get to know like five people on the flight. I'm like, I don't know how this happened. I swear I tried not to do it, but it just happens. And my husband's like, you talk to people like it. And I was like, no, I really actively tried not to. Like, I had my headphones in, I had my book out, like I was really trying. And I see
So
a lot of
funny.
us here kind of right in the middle, what you guys said. Maybe some days we're feeling like an extrovert. Maybe it depends on the area. Maybe it depends on our comfort zone, what we're doing that day, where we are. Totally makes sense. And then some of us are feeling like, no, you know what? I just don't feel like putting myself out there. And for those, really, what kind of advice and tips do we have in terms of networking? If you're really feeling like I don't feel comfortable reaching out. What are some things that we can advise or give tips on those introverts if we had to put a label on it? What do you guys think?
So I always say for introverts, if you're going to any sort of event or conference, to bring a buddy. Bring someone who can like be your safe space, be your sounding board, but that's going to hold you accountable to like, okay, you said you wanted to meet this person, like come on. Like we're going to go do it. I think it is very hard as an introvert to go to an event completely by yourself. So I'm a big fan of the buddy system.
Oh, I love that. The buddy system. I hadn't heard of that before, but so great. Holding you to those, like holding you accountable to those
Yeah.
goals, right? I love that.
Accountability.
What about you, Rachel? What do you think?
I agree with this buddy system here, and here's why. It's what I use all the time. If I have to do something by myself, I'm like, oh, I'm a little nervous here. But if I have someone with me, oh, I've got it all day. And it makes a huge difference for me being someone who is in the middle. The other thing too is like even just being okay with taking that first step, like we said, about being a little okay with the uncomfortable and taking that step, because again, it is going to be necessary, but know your limits. Don't overdo it. Set a goal for yourself of, hey,
True.
I'm going to this conference. I'm going to make 3 new connections this conference. And then maybe the next time you set that goal a little bit higher, but do it slowly so you don't burn yourself out the very first time you try to network.
I
I
love
would
that,
also say
Rachel.
quality over quantity. Like if
Yes.
I have an event in Philly next week, and if there is one specific person at one institution that I am like, this is my goal to form a genuine, authentic relationship with that person. I've reached out on LinkedIn ahead of time. I'll see them there. I'll follow back up. Hopefully I'll make some other connections. I'm very much open to whatever comes my way, but quality over quantity. You don't need to meet every person under the sun. Like,
I love that. I love that. So buddy system, quality over quantity. Morgan, I also heard you say before you go to an event, you've done your research, you know who you want to reach out to, who those quality people are, and you've already reached out to them through LinkedIn. So you've already made that first connection. That is awesome. And then you get to the conference, you meet them, you put yourself out there. You don't want to burn out, really focusing on quality, setting those goals, like Rachel said, maybe 3 people during that conference if it's really a long conference, and then following up with them. That is awesome. Really great advice. And I will say, I am an instigator. So if you want me to be your buddy, go ahead and ping me, because I am always that buddy who's like, let's do it. You said we do it. Let's do it. So I'm always happy to be your buddy, you guys. So this slide I threw in here today just because I was really curious to see how many of you were joining us today because you're really looking for that new job. I hope now you realize that networking is not just for when you're looking for a new job, and you'll continue to do it even beyond your next job and whatever career transition you're going through. But I really wanted to give you guys this bright outlook if you don't already know it, which I think a lot of you do, because a lot of you are feeling great about the job market, which is very nice. But look at this beautiful career outlook across the board, right? This is a slide that if you watched one of our presentations within this professional development series, I really talked about all the different Masters of Science in nursing careers and pathways for a nurse. So this is looking at all those advanced practices, where you can go with your career and what that career outlook looks like. So look at this, by 2031, so not that far out, we're already in 2025, which is crazy. Look at that 40% growth as a nurse practitioner. Look at our nurse educators, 18% growth. But across the board, look at this growth. I think the average growth in any field right now is about 6%. So we are continually exceeding that in nursing, right? So the job outlook looks really great. And there are a lot of different sources that talk about this. The American Medical Association, the Bureau of Health Workforce really talks about those shortages. I was going to go through some stats with you guys just to get you a sense of where this career outlook is coming from. But remember, right now it's estimated that there's more than 83 million people in the US that live in areas without sufficient primary care physicians. So that's where we're seeing really this outlook, this career growth for nurse practitioners, because we just do not have enough primary care clinicians out there. And that shortage is projected to get even worse by 2037, which is not that far out. That's a little over 10 years out, especially in areas like family medicine, internal medicine, pediatric, geriatrics. So we're seeing a huge trend with our nurses, not only going through, passing their NCLEX, getting those first nursing jobs, but really thinking ahead, setting those goals and looking at advanced practice, right? And there is a great reason for that. There's a lot of career growth in advanced practice as an NP. Another stat that I saw in 2022, there were about 280,000 primary care physicians in the US and an estimated 270,000 nurse practitioners. So forget about the numbers. What I'm saying to you is even number of MDs and NPs as primary care clinicians out in the workforce right now. We are providing an equal number of clinicians out there in the workforce as primary care clinicians. That is huge. And studies show that NPs provide care that's comparable in quality to the physicians when managing these common health conditions. So that is really great and a really hopeful outlook, I think, for you guys. Rachel, did you want to talk a little bit about the stats for nurse educators? I have it here. I can run through. I know it's your passion. I didn't know if you wanted to share with the audience what you're working on, but if you wanted to share that with them.
So I'm not going to remember these stats off the top of my head, but do you mind sharing it? Do you have the number in front of you?
I have the number. So the American Association, so we're talking about nurse education now, nurse educators. And the reason why we're talking about this is because Rachel is currently becoming a nurse educator. She's completing her MSN. I'm going to tell the audience, I'm sorry, a little, what do they call it when you, spoiler alert. And then the American Association of Colleges of Nursing, so the AACN, reported enrollment in 2023-2024 academic year. So not this academic year, but the last academic year. They identified over 65,000 qualified nursing student candidates that were turned away due to lack of available faculty members. So we just have a faculty shortage in the nursing world, right? And so do you want to talk a little bit about that? And the Bureau of Labor really projects that this is going to grow because we need faculty to teach our future nurses, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing the stat. I'm like, oh shoot, I don't remember what
I had it here. I didn't know if you had it at the top of your head
about it. But I think it's important to understand that nursing students are being pushed away because we don't have enough educators. And there's some barriers there that you guys don't need to know all the barriers of what causes low educators. But one of the big ones is just, isn't an MSN sufficient? Do they need to have a doctorate? A lot of colleges require that doctorate. And so because we have a lack of just nurses out there, we have a lack of educators out there and a lack of availability for clinical placement. And so a lot of this is causing shortages that are going to be more long-term. And so if we want to really fill those gaps, we have to be thinking back to when you guys all start school, which is at the education, spot. And so if you're thinking, oh, I want to get into education one day, don't wait till you're 60 like I was going to do. You can start earlier than that. Then you can pursue that sooner because nursing education definitely needs you as well. So do all the other areas. But if that's your passion, follow it. If you really want to be an NP and that's your passion, follow that. That's the beauty of nursing is whatever your passion is, there's probably a job out there for you. So go find what that is because when you love what you do every single day, you're not working a day in your life. That is so true because you love it. And so find what that passion is and work to pursue that in a timeline that works for you.
I love that, Rachel. Really, if it's your passion, you're like engrossed in it and you're driven by it and it doesn't feel like work because you're just hungry for it. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And if you don't see that job on the table, go make that job. We are entrepreneurs. We are innovators. We are creators of what our profession is going to look like in the future. So just because it's not offered to you doesn't mean it's not a possibility.
I love that, Morgan. So for those of you on Instagram, she said, if you don't see the job, go and create that job, be a nurse entrepreneur. And I fully agree with that. I love that, you guys. So key takeaways from today, write down 3 names of 3 people you want to connect with. There are 3 people on this webinar. We've told you time and time again, and we're so happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. That right there, check it off your list. That could be your 3 for this week. Write down 1 new group or organization you'll check out this week and really start to make those connections. Go to those local meetings, go to those national meetings and start checking out, is this an organization that really is going to give you some resources to get to your goals? That's going to be really important. And really start that list of contacts and where you know them from. That's really something, my personal tip, just because as you're starting to build this list, you might lose track of where you're meeting people and you want to definitely follow up and make sure you're continuing to build those connections. And then lastly, really join our community. So that could be the organization that you check off your list for this week, right? If you haven't already joined our community, I know we have a lot of friends joining us from Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Make sure you're connecting with us. We have our advanced practice Facebook group, our FNP Facebook group. You can go ahead and scan this QR code and make that connection with us. Really, we do a lot of free webinars. We are so interested in supporting the nurse throughout the nursing journey, and we have a lot of great things that we really trial out in that free period. So wink, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Make sure you're following us and you don't miss all those beta phases of things that we're trying out. And then you can also scan this QR code and really try to build that mentorship with us. If you don't have someone in mind, or you don't have that local community, you don't feel like you have that in your nursing school or your nursing community where you can make those mentors, or like Morgan said, you want mentors in a lot of different areas and a lot of different strengths, right? So make sure you start establishing those mentorships. And then if you have any questions, either for myself, Morgan, or Rachel, you guys send to this email, nursepractitioner@archerreview.com, and I'll make sure it gets to the right person. But any other finishing comments, Rachel and Morgan, before we let everyone go for the day?
I just want to say thanks for joining. And if there's something that you're like, oh, I feel like a lot of students would benefit from you all talking about X topic, let Hiva know. We will talk about it. If there's something you really want to hear from us on, let us know that. We're here to support you. And so if there is that topic, please let us know. Thanks for joining.
100%. We want to be here with you through every stage of your journey. So at Archer FNP is where you're going to find our professional dev, our continuing education, our advanced practice. You're always willing to walk out. You're always welcome to reach out at nurse practitioner at archerreview.com. We really want to be a part of your family for this journey all the way through. So thank you for being here, and we hope to hear from you later.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, you guys. And as both Morgan and Rachel said, we really want to hear from you guys. We really value your feedback. So go ahead. This is an open text. You can always tell us, what do you want to see more of, right? In these professional development series, what do you want to see more of in general from Archer? Where are you feeling like you need that community? Go ahead and let us know. We here are really passionate about making sure that we're supporting you guys, and we want to hear from you. So we really appreciate your participation today. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining us. And we'll hopefully see you next month in our mindfulness series.
Yay. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Thank you again, Rachel and Morgan. You guys are awesome. Thank you for joining us today.
Bye.